The Second Great Awakening was a time of revival across many denominations in the United States, and one of those was the Presbyterians. In 1801, over 10,000 people attended the Cane Ridge Revival in Kentucky, organized by minister Barton Stone. Revivalism often tended toward ecumenism, with ministers from many denominations worshiping and preaching together. Stone was a part of the Presbyterian Church in the United States of America, and he abandoned his Calvinist beliefs for Arminian ones, as did several other ministers. This ultimately led him and others to withdraw from Presbyterianism altogether and lead in the Restoration movement, which resulted in the foundation of congregations that are today Churches of Christ, Christian churches, and the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Not everyone left willingly, though. The National Presbyterian denomination, called the Presbyterian Church in the United States of America, exercised discipline on ministers who refused to remain faithful to the Westminster Confession of Faith. So when the Cumberland Presbytery of the Kentucky Synod began to license ministers that didn't hold to the confession at all, the Synod acted, suspending them, bringing them on heresy charges, and ultimately dissolving the Cumberland Presbytery altogether in 1806. In 1810, ministers on the dissenting side formed their own denomination, officially rejecting limited atonement and double predestination. The church says, Cumberland Presbyterians come out of the Old Presbyterian Church, February 4, 1810, on the American frontier, as the result of differences over theology, ministerial education, methods of ministry, and the Great Revival of 1800. At the time, there were just one presbytery, Cumberland Presbytery. In 1813, 3 presbyteries formed the Cumberland Synod, and finally, due to growth in 1829, they formed a General Assembly. In 1869, African-American ministers asked for assistance in forming a separate denomination for their own churches with the CPC's approval. This was granted, and in 1874, the Colored Cumberland Presbyterian Church was formed. It later renamed to the Second Cumberland Presbyterian Church, and finally to the Cumberland Presbyterian Church in America, which still exists today on good terms with the Cumberland Presbyterian Church and had around 113 congregations in 2022. The denominations share the same confession of faith, and since 2014, the CPC and CPCA have been working toward merger, releasing a proposed plan of union in 2019 which envisioned merger by 2021. However, the majority of presbyteries in the CPCA voted down the merger, so the plan for union has been suspended for the present. Nearly a century after the Cumberland Presbyterian Church had split from the PCUSA, the PCUSA had significantly weakened its own demands for doctrinal homogeneity among its ministers, and had even added its own chapters to the Westminster Confession, loosening its position on Calvinism in 1903. In 1906, the majority of ministers and congregations and nearly 2/3 of the membership in the Cumberland Presbyterian Church merged back into the PCUSA, but a minority stayed out. In 1953, a group formed within the denomination called the Fellowship of Cumberland Presbyterian Conservatives, which held as one of their main issues that the denomination had made their boards members of the National Council of Churches, and also disapproved of the use of the Revised Standard Version of the Bible. In 1954, the General Assembly announced official disapproval of the group and deemed them schismatic. Following this, several ministers left the church and formed the Upper Cumberland Presbyterian Church, which still exists today with fewer than 15 congregations and uses the King James Version of the Bible in worship. In 1961, the United Presbyterian Church in the USA, which was formed when the Presbyterian Church in the United States and America merged with the United Presbyterian Church of North America, once again invited the Cumberland Presbyterian Church to merge together with it, which the Cumberland Presbyterian Church declined. The UPC-USA ultimately merged with the Presbyterian Church in the U.S. to form today's Presbyterian Church USA. Unlike most Presbyterian denominations, the Cumberland Presbyterian Church has never required subscription to the Westminster Confession. At the First Synod in 1813, they produced a brief statement which listed points of disagreement with it, and in 1814 they produced a revision of the Westminster Confession they call simply the Confession of Faith. This has seen a few major revisions, most recently in 1984.